Hi, this is Chris Gregory here. This is Bob Dylan, A Head Full of Ideas, and this is Pop Songs of the 1980s, Part 3. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a look at my website, www.chrisgregory.org. Do enjoy.
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?
Dylan in the 80s, Part 3. In 3 songs on Empire Burlesque, Dylan plunges quite explicitly into the romantic, tragic territory of mainstream pre-rock songs. This was an area that he would later explore in his music of the 2000s and 2010s. But while later songs like Love and Fete, Moonlight and By slyly subvert the genre, these songs are unashamedly sentimental in tone and feature a number of rhymes which sound as corny and contrived as many of those old numbers. Dylan seemed to be quite deliberately entering an arena which was the polar opposite of his established sense as a poetic songwriter. It was hardly surprising that many of his fans were extremely bemused by this. I'll Remember You has some similarities to a song of the same title, which Elvis Presley performed on stage many times in his Las Vegas years. The recording on Empire Burlesque features restrained backing from Mike Campbell and Howie Epstein from Tom Petty's Heartbreakers on guitar and bass. There are more click-tack drums supplied by Don Heffington of Lone Justice. As with Tight Connection, synths and percussion were later overdubbed. The song features lyrics that require little interpretation. It does, however, boast a memorable melody. Dylan was clearly fond of it, performing it over 200 times in concert, often with considerable commitment and belief. It often functions as a contrast to, or perhaps light relief from, his heavier material. It begins, I'll remember you when I've forgotten all the rest. You to me were true, you to me were the best. And continuing in much the same vein. Apart from the bridge section, which runs, didn't I try to love you? Didn't I try to care? Didn't I sleep? Didn't I weep beside you with the rain blowing in your hair? The song could be written about a dear departed friend as much as a lover. There are various allusions to death. The narrator tells us that he will remember the object of the song when I'm all alone in the great unknown. Apart from the reference to the wind blowing through the piney woods, there is no notable concrete imagery. The song is a kind of elegy either to a lost lover or a dead friend. At a stretch, one might imagine it is Dylan expressing his regret at being unable to continue to have faith in Jesus. Certainly his reference to the afterlife as the great unknown indicates little religious certainty. Emotionally Yours uses a similar lineup of musicians with prominent overdub synthesizer, although an alternate undubbed take, which is featured on the Springtime in New York release from the Bootleg series, reveals a more upfront and committed vocal from Dylan. The song itself is a straightforward ballad, which, though reveling in cliches, is efficiently delivered, demonstrating that Dylan is capable of mastering the form of a soul-inflected pop song, which could almost be called a power ballad. Such over-the-top songs like Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart and The Power of Love by Jennifer Rush were highly popular in the mid-80s. Dylan's song is a little more restrained and the sentiments are expressed in a sincere way, but the composition itself communicates little more than the title suggests. It's a straightforward, formulaic love song in which the first 2 lines of each of the 3 verses begin with invocations, consisting of "Come, baby," with the girl being asked to find me, show me, rock me, teach me, and the like. In the 3rd line of each verse, the narrator tells us that he will be learning, dreaming, and later unraveling, which are rhymed with yearning, believing, and travelling. The singer tries to woo her by telling her, "You're the one I'm living for." The bridge, which departs from this formula, at least presents a different perspective, as the narrator appears to be desperately trying to believe his luck in finding her. It's like my whole life never happened. When I see you, it's as if I never had a thought. Before sliding into, I know this dream, it might be crazy, but it's the only one I've got. It's easy to imagine Vegas Elvis wrapping his larynx around these sentiments. Never Gonna Be the Same Again, in which a lover expresses his regret at his treatment of the girl, is a less convincing attempt at a romantic song containing some of Dylan's most contrived lyrics. After telling the object of the song that she is a living dream, he confesses that every time you get this close, it makes me want to scream. This is, it seems, meant to be a compliment. Later we hear that, sorry if I hurt you, baby, sorry if I did, sorry if I touched the place where your secrets are hid. Later he admits that, I can't go back to what was, baby, I can't unring the bell. A bizarre use of legal terminology in this context. To compound this, you took my reality and cast it to the wind, even makes a half-assured allusion to Dylan's own classic Blowing in the Wind. Although the backing singers contribute enthusiastic vocals to shadow many of the lines, the track is again plagued by a metronomic drum pattern. In later live performances, Dylan recasts it as a restrained country croon, making the narrator's inarticulacy become more appealing and convincing. With Seeing the Real You at Last, we're in slightly bluesier territory. The song is based around a repeated riff. Although the effect of this is somewhat muted by the album's production, it's more effective in a live setting. Dylan included the song as a regular part of his set on the 1986 tour with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and later played it more than 200 times on the Never-Ending Tour. Despite this, its dynamics are somewhat predictable and its lyrics are mostly rather uninspired. The title refrain is repeated at the end of each verse with what often sounds like grim inevitability. The song features a whinging narrator who complains, rather pathetically, that his girl has left him and that, I'd like to get you to change your mind, but it looks like you won't. He then claims that he is actually glad the relationship is over and tells her that he just wants to get on with his life. But it's obvious that this is mere bluster. He continues to try to win her over, claiming that he is hungry and irritable, has risked his neck for her and has had to rise above the most unfortunate circumstances, as well as having some rotten nights. In the final verses, he lightens the mood a little. When I met you, baby, he tells her, you didn't show no visible scars. You could ride like Annie Oakley. You could shoot like Belle Starr. But then he merely resigns himself to his fate. As trying to compare her to female Western heroes has obviously failed, he informs her that I'm going to quit this baby talk now and backs away, telling her, whatever you got to do, please do it fast, placing himself at her mercy. The song, like his attempted discourse, is hard to like. It has few uplifting moments and no real discernible touches of humour. During the extensive studio sessions Dylan took part in for Empire Burlesque, he also recorded several other poppy compositions in different genres. The lyrics to these songs are fairly perfunctory, as Dylan plays around, sometimes uncertainly, with various musical forms. Although such material is decidedly lightweight, Dylan appears to be on surer ground than his relatively contrived attempts to be romantic or tragic in songs like Never Gonna Be the Same Again or Emotionally Yours. The cheerful and possibly unfinished Waiting to Get Beat is perhaps the nearest Dylan gets to an authentic reggae sound. He even tries somewhat unconvincingly to adopt a Johnny Too Bad persona as he makes rather empty threats to his errant lover. You're playing around with daddy, baby, when you should have quit. Nobody messes up one of these boys and gets away with it. Straight A's in Love, which is a kind of rewrite of a Johnny Cash song of the same name, is a tongue-in-cheek diatribe addressed to a girl whose academic achievements are minimal. There are some effective lyrical touches, as we hear that, in history you don't do too well, you don't know how to read, you could confuse Geronimo with Johnny Appleseed. The song hits an appealing rockabilly groove with some sprightly guitar work by Mike Campbell. Go Away Little Boy, which was written for the LA band Lone Justice, fronted by singer Maria McKee, is another light-hearted effort, written from a female point of view. The narrator continually spurns her lover, but we soon realise that she's really in love with him. Go away, little boy, she complains. You're making me cry. Is Bob Dylan Shake,
a head full
written and
of
first
ideas,
performed soon
and
after
this
the
is
album's
Pop
release
songs of the
is another
1980s,
crowd
Part
warmer,
3.
like
Don't
Enough
forget
is
to
Enough.
like
It is
and
a conventional
subscribe.
blues
Look at
with
my
repeated
website,
first lines. His narrator dispenses various rather obvious sexual innuendos.
Is Bob Dylan
At this
a
point,
head full
Dylan could be
of
said to be
ideas?
approaching one of the
And this
lowest
is
creative
Pop
ebbs of his
songs of the
career.
1980s,
Three of
Part
the songs
3.
from the next
Don't forget
album,
to like and
1986's
subscribe.
Knocked Out
Or look at
Loaded,
my
are
website,
standard bluesy rockers with little
www.chrisgregory.org.
real passion or substance. In
You enjoy.
Got My Mind Made
Is
Up,
Bob
the
Dylan
narrator
a
makes
head
the
full
bizarre
of
announcement
ideas?
that I'm
And this
going off
is
to Libya.
Pop
There's a
songs
guy
of the
I gotta see,
1980s,
been
Part
living there for
3.
years now,
Don't
in an
forget
oil
to
refinery.
like and subscribe.
While
Or
telling
look
his
at my
girl that
website,
she will be okay, even though he is leaving her. It may be that the song is supposed to be written from the point of view of a terrorist, as Libya was then under the dictatorial rule of the notorious Colonel Gaddafi. But these startling lines are never really clarified, and the song merely winds down anticlimactically after a couple of minutes. Drifting Too Far from the Shore, which takes its title from a Hank Williams song, has a chorus which merely repeats the title phrase 4 times. The lyrics are full of awkward diction such as, I didn't know that you'd be leaving, or who you thought you were talking to, I figure maybe we're even, or maybe I'm one up on you. Later he tells her that he could never guess your weight, baby, never needed to call you my whore. He claims that you and me, we had completeness. I gave you all of what I could provide. We weren't on the wrong side, sweetness. We were the wrong side. Although the rhyme of completeness and sweetness is certainly quirky, the tone remains patronising. The narrator, the rather lifeless and lumpen maybe someday, is equally dismissive towards the subject of the song, who has run off with another man. But lines such as, when the lights grow dim, you'll see you look much better with me than you do with him. I should have called your bluff. I guess I was too off the handle, not sentimental enough. And the climactic, there was no greater love than what I had for you, are hardly likely to attract her. There's an overall feeling of hopelessness in these songs, and Dylan's usual sharp rhyming is conspicuously absent. In contrast, Under Your Spell, the concluding track on the album, is a subtle and quite precisely written song which demonstrated that Dylan could produce pop-orientated material in a surer, more sophisticated manner. Here he shares the writing credits with Carol Bayer Sager, whose well-known compositions include cleverly constructed and witty pop songs like A Groovy Kind of Love and It's the Falling in Love. Perhaps the discipline of writing with such a distinguished figure had sharpened Dylan's sensibility somewhat, as this is a fully realised composition with a haunting melody and lyrics which are carefully constructed to suggest a confused but forthright narrator, who is expressing regret about his missed opportunities as a lover. Lines like, I'd like to help you, but I'm in a bit of a jam. I'll call you tomorrow if there's phones where I am, make the weakness of his protestations clear. He admits that she can read him like a book, while his excuse for mistreating her in the memorable phrase, I was knocked out and loaded in the naked night, seemed to suggest that he was too stoned or drunk to cope with the situation, which is later confirmed when he tells her, I'll see you later when I'm not so out of my head. Although he states that you were too hot to handle, you were breaking every vow, his assertion that I trusted you, baby, you can trust me now, is hard to believe. The use of such unreliable narrators would be a common feature of Dylan's late period songs from Time Out of Mind onwards. The song has an unusual rhyming structure in that it mainly consists of 3-line verses, with the first 2 lines rhyming and the third lines rhyming with each other. So we get Under Your Spell, What a Story I Could Tell, and Caught Between Heaven and Hell. These end rhymes provide a kind of commentary on the rest of the song. In the final verses, the questions, Is there anything left to tell? And Baby, what more can I tell? Provide an effective lead-up to the final verse, which takes us into more metaphorical territory. The desert is hot, the mountain is cursed, pray that I don't die of thirst, 2 feet from the well. The song then suddenly stops dead, leaving us to further question the authenticity of the narrator's pronouncements. Even though Knocked Out Loaded and its successor Down in the Groove, 1988, were generally regarded as among Dylan's weakest ever efforts, songs like Under Your Spell and the brilliant Brownsville Girl demonstrated that his talent had certainly not deserted him. Both albums, however, were padded out with covers. Knocked Out Loaded included a rather jaded run-throughs of Junior Parker's You Gotta Ramble, the traditional spiritual Precious Memories, and Chris Christopherson's cloyingly sentimental tribute to the martyrs, They Killed Him, complete with, of all things, a children's choir. Down in the Groove included a compassionate rendition of the traditional Civil War lament Shenandoah, a committed version of Hank Snow's tragic country lament 90 miles an hour down a dead-end street, and the Stanley Brothers' remarkable song of religious alienation, Rank Strangers to Me. These songs could have formed the basis of an intriguing album of interpretations of country and blues material, but Dylan's record company insisted on adding the doomy Death Is Not the End from the Infidels sessions and the leaden blues by numbers of Had a Dream About You Baby from the Hearts of Fire project, which seriously unbalanced the cohesion of the album. The only new Dylan material consisted of 2 songs he'd composed with Grateful Dead lyricist Robert Hunter, both of which Hunter had apparently written the lyrics to. One of these was the embarrassingly misogynist Ugliest Girl in the World, an attempt to parody conventional love songs which peddled an extremely obvious line in humorous innuendo. The other joint composition, however, Silvio, was an earnest, dynamic and intriguing song which became a centre point of Dylan's never-ending tour shows throughout the 1990s, its instrumental passages allowing his various guitarists to demonstrate their blues guitar chops. There's little doubt that Dylan himself realised that at this point he was struggling to recapture not only his poetic skills, but also the primal force and energy of his music. Soon he would experiment with radical new approaches to songwriting on the albums Oh Mercy and Under the Red Sky. He would abandon the musical and sartorial trappings of his attempts to position himself as a mainstream pop rock star and go back to basics with the stripped-down rock bands of the early Never-Ending Tour. But this would not be an easy journey, and it would take many years, arguably until the release of the epical Time Out of Mind in 1997, before he could fully reconstitute his art. What's remarkable about Silvio is that Hunter seems to have put his finger on Dylan's current malaise as a songwriter and performer and was offering him a way back. Dylan certainly seems to have appreciated this and kept repeatedly performing what to many of his fans was a relatively obscure song, using it as a catalyst to renew his art. The song is heavily influenced by the literary genre of magical realism, which originated in South America in the works of Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Isabel Allende. It begins, "Stake my future on a hell of a past, looks like tomorrow is coming on fast. Ain't complaining about what I got, seen better days, but who has not?" Which is a very honest and accurate summary of Dylan's current situation. The infectious chorus runs, "Silvio, silver and gold, won't buy back the beat of a heart grown cold. Silvio, I gotta go, find out something only dead men know." Silvio seems to be like some kind of black musician, a figure who the narrator is appealing to discover the secrets of the universe. He can perhaps be identified with Silvio Manuel, a character in Carlos Castaneda's novel The Eagle's Gift, 1978, the 6th book in the series describing the author's apprenticeship to the mysterious Mexican sage Don Juan as he becomes a shaman. In Silvio, the narrator seems to be attempting to grasp some indefinable secret which is the key to creativity. Various lines in the next verse, which seem to be spoken by the magician himself, make it quite clear who is doing the searching. "Honest as the next jade rolling that stone, when I come knocking don't throw me no bone." Clearly references like a rolling stone and knocking on heaven's door. "I'm an old boll weevil looking for a home" refers to a traditional blues song popularised by Leadbelly about an insect plague that at one time almost destroyed the cotton industry in America's Deep South. Silvio compares himself to the weevil, implying that he is attempting to bury himself in the singer's consciousness. The magician then boasts of his magical powers. "I can snap my fingers and require the rain from a clear blue sky and turn it off again. I can stroke your body and relieve your pain and charm the whistle of an evening train." In the remaining verses, the Dylan narrator, having met with this shaman and presumably absorbed some of his secrets, realizes that translating what he has learned into creating a new self will not be easy. Thus the song embodies his struggle to retain his creativity. I can tell you fancy, I can tell you plain, Dylan sings, you give something up for everything you gain. Since every pleasure's got an edge of pain, pay for your ticket and don't complain. Finally, he declares that one of these days, and it won't be long, going down in the valley and sing my song. I will sing it loud and sing it strong, let the echo decide if I was right or wrong. As these words imply, he has not yet reached the point where he can sing loud and strong songs, but if he keeps on transmitting this secret that only dead men know, then hopefully he'll recover his own magical powers. One intriguing song from this period which never saw the light of day, perhaps because Dylan regarded it as an unfinished sketch, was To Fall in Love With You, which remains buried on a little heard tape of the soundtrack songs for 1987's disastrous Hearts of Fire project. Some of the lyrics are unintelligible, perhaps because Dylan is unsure of them. It appears to be a song he's toying with to see if it might emerge as a fully fledged composition. The lyrics are those of a love song, but the prevailing tone is of the uncertainty which will haunt some of the songs of Inner Struggle and Oh Mercy. A tear goes down, he cries, my day is real, like a dying eye upon the stage. We then hear that my day is dark, our time is right, deep in the night, I heard my surprise, I see it in your lips, I knew it in your eyes, I feel your love and I feel no shame, will ages roll, will ages fly, I hear your name where angels lie. It may even be that he is improvising these words as he sings them. It is as if he is trying to summon up the courage needed to allow himself to fall in love, which in this case may really indicate that he's trying to reach the deeper well springs of his creativity. His performance is far from the professional songwriting he's been falling back on for much of the latter part of the decade. The recording, rough and ready as it is, has a certain ineffable quality which recalls I'm Not There from the Basement tapes. It is as if he is attempting to grasp a feeling which he cannot quite define, or perhaps he is trying, without always succeeding, to understand his own thoughts. Like the character in Silvio, the narrator appears to be grappling with unknowable forces, searching for the wellspring of his own creativity. The song is thus highly tantalizing. Despite its unformed nature, it holds out the promise of far greater things to come.
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?